several years ago, there was a discovery of a receipt from a Polish count made out to Bach, which proved that Bach was a salesman for the Silbermann piano. Now, this has been very surprising to some people. It's an important discovery because it proves a number of things and it corroborates Bach's attitude towards instruments.
But this business of Bach having sold a Silbermann piano, does this mean anything more than the fact that he was a hard-working Kapellmeister who turned an honest penny by doing whatever happened to arise in the business? Does it show anything about his attitude to the instrument?
Associated with this discovery of the receipt is an article by Christoph Wolff, in which he points out that the time that Bach went to visit Frederick the Great, and that he tried these baker's dozen or so of pianos that Frederick had at his court. But the important thing is that, as we know, he went off with the royal theme and wrote the musical offering. Wolff points out that from internal evidence, the trio sonata was conceived for the piano and flute and string rather than the harpsichord. And we also know that Bach was very familiar with the piano. In fact, he had a relationship with Silbermann which went up and down in friendly and unfriendly terms. And Bach did criticize the piano adversely, and no doubt quite rightly so. It was a very young instrument. And Silbermann apparently was quite unhappy about the criticism, but he took it seriously enough to do something about it, and he improved the instrument. And so certainly Bach was interested in the piano. And it is most natural that after trying the pianos at Frederick's court, receiving the royal theme, that he would write a work very specifically conceived in terms of the piano. And in the actual figuration of this work, it's very clearly a pianistic kind of conception. So both from external and internal evidence sources, it would seem very clear that the keyboard part of the sonata, of the trio sonata, is very distinctly for the piano. I believe very much in playing this music on the 18th century instruments, although some may think that I don't. But I not only believe in their appropriateness and their importance, but I myself have played the harpsichord, the organ, and the clavichord since I was 14 years old. In fact, I've grown up with these instruments in my mind, my psyche, my fingers, my whole musical feeling and knowledge. These instruments were part of my instrumental education. And I have always taken it for granted that a musician who was serious enough to look for interpretation as authentic as possible would, of course, study these instruments. Now, I think that we have been beset a little too much with the concepts of right and wrong in the field of art, of music, and of interpretation. And I believe that these words and these concepts are not quite apt for something as vast as art and all that it entails, and especially the performance of an art of another age, where the direct tradition has been lost. In a sense, no one has a right to use the word right or the word wrong in this respect. It has been my contention always throughout my work and my life that Bach's music is essentially abstract. I have always paid a great deal of attention to the evidence of Bach's own settings of the same music for entirely different instruments. We have almost hundreds of examples of Bach's own changes of instruments in his own hand, not only from one instrument to another, but sometimes the same work in 4 different types of settings. So this has been one of the foundations of my feelings about the legitimacy of playing Bach on the piano, because Bach himself continually reset his music for entirely different sonorities. There is no one correct sonority for Bach. The connection with sonorities really began to be important more after the epoch of Bach than during his epoch or before it. And that is what I mean when I say Bach's music is essentially abstract. That's why his music can be played and has been played in every conceivable and inconceivable style and on all sorts of instruments, and has survived. You cannot do that with the music of the 19th century or even of the 20th century, where in composers' minds the association with the exact timbre is so deep that it really does change the music. I mean, you can't take Chopin and just translate him onto one instrument after another. The connection with sonorities is indeed the history of almost of music in the 19th century.